listening to Milky Radio, your online internet radio station.
Hello, I'm James Reynolds. Welcome to the documentary from the BBC World Service. In BBC OS Conversations, we bring people together to share their experiences. And this time, it's the younger generation of protest in Kenya. Parliament was set on fire. Hundreds were arrested. Others died on the streets. The country's youth, otherwise known as Gen Z, made the president take note and change course. They want all politicians to hear what they have to say.
I wish that in future we can have public participations, we can have conversations with those state leaders so that we can ask them questions. Youth panels that are needed, those same leaders that were elected should come, but they can't. They're scared.
When William Ruto won the Kenyan presidential election in 2022, his tales of selling chickens to make a living appealed to the difficult-to-reach youth vote. But now, those in their 20s and even younger are angry with their president. Like so many other countries, Kenya is struggling with a cost of living crisis. It's also got to work out how to balance its books. So the government's answer was a plan to raise taxes in what was called the Finance Bill. That bill, the idea of more taxes, created the spark for the protests. According to estimates provided by the state-funded Rights Commission, 39 people have been killed in those demonstrations. And one of the issues underpinning the protests is unemployment. It's more than that even. It's the difficulty of making enough money to get by even if you do have a job. So we wanted to hear from those who've graduated but are still struggling to find properly paid jobs. All of them took part in the recent protests. My colleague Andrew Peach spoke to 32-year-old Philip, who graduated in 2016, to Ivy, who's 25 and graduated in 2020, the same year as 23-year-old Valin.
Due to the current situation in Kenya, finding a job is hard. We have children to cater for. Like today morning, one of my kids came home saying Mom, they want school fees. The government here in Kenya says education is free. But is it really free? Why do we have to pay for exams? Why do we have to pay for meals in school? Until I'm able to have the whole school fees, my child can no longer go to school. My child will be left behind. It makes you feel like you failed your children. And I don't know when I will get the money. I don't know when, because there's no job. I don't know when my next gig will be. I don't know.
After graduation, I was so optimistic that in the next 1 year, I'm going to secure a job. But that turned out to be different. I decided to jump into some business here and there. Actually, business is even harder, but it is the only option. Then COVID-19 came in. We went back to square zero. We started something else again. Then 2024, we are having these demos. Therefore, business is not going on. Therefore, getting money is very hard.
And what sort of businesses did you start up, Philip?
In the beginning, I partnered with a friend who had skills in IT, installing surveillance cameras, and also selling point-of-sale systems.
And Valin, let me ask you, what are you doing for work at the moment and how is that playing out?
Sometimes I receive gigs to perform poetry. Sometimes I do theatre. That keeps me going.
But really, you'd like to be working as a graphic designer, which is what you're qualified at.
I always get these replies like, we are sorry, we are not able to accommodate you. There were so many replies. And sometimes they tell me we needed someone who has a 3-year experience. Yes, I am a graduate. So how will I be experienced for 3 years if you don't give me a chance?
And Ivy, you've got communications qualifications. You'd like to be working in that kind of sector. Tell me what you are doing.
At the moment, all I do is do meal preps. So if someone needs a service where they need the food prepared for the week or for the month, that's what I get to do. Though it's not a lot, but it's an opportunity, so I appreciate it. About 3 years ago, I was selling dog food. I got meat from a company here in Kenya and sold it to people who had dogs. The business was doing really well, but after some time, the food was not available from the supplier anymore. Also, with the situation that we have right now, it's not very safe to have deliveries done to clients. So I've had to put a pause on it also for now.
And you'd like to be working as a journalist?
I would love to work as a journalist. That has been my dream. I've been applying for jobs since 2020 when I graduated. Even though all the qualifications they mention on their websites, I have them, but I'm still not able to get a job at a media house.
I started in 2018, finished in 2019. Then I could not even secure internship because at that time is when COVID set in. At the moment, I'm doing supplies of groceries to restaurants, hotels, and so forth. But if I got a chance as a teacher, I would really appreciate. But it is not easy because you realize that there is a lot of corruption, whereby someone who knows someone will get hired. If you know no one, you'll not get hired.
I'm 25 right now, but I still have to live with my parents because even if I move out, I would not be able to cater to my own bills. I would not be able to pay my rent, to get food. So I don't really have a choice but to live at home, which I'm fortunate enough to have parents who can support me. But there's so many people who do not have that. So they're forced to look for other ways to make money to sustain their livelihoods.
Yeah, there's so many Kenyans who are moving to the Arab countries just to find something that will build their career with. I was even planning to go to Gulf. So as you see now in Kenya, like things are getting worse by every day.
Philip, you joined the protests last week. Tell me why you're involved.
It was mainly about the finance bill, where most of the basic things were being taxed. And that way, they were going to make our life even harder. After it was dropped, personally, I'm no longer involved, but there are those who are still involved in the protests, and I think they have valid reasons. They're also talking about the extravagance of the government, spending without care, and also the misplaced priorities.
I am one of these people that Philip is mentioning who is still involved because I appreciate that the government has decided to drop the bill, but it's taken too much for us to get here. So many lives have been lost, but when people try to talk, they don't want to talk about it or they don't really care. All they care about is the amount of money that was lost during the protests when really there's more that happened. There was also something in the finance bill where instead of people owning land, the state will take it back and people would need to pay the government some amount of money. My dad is a farmer and the money he gets from that is what has been able to give us the life we have right now. If that happened and there was more money that he needed to pay to the government, I don't really see how that will be helpful to any citizen.
Yes, he withdrew it, but it will still tax Kenyans in a way. And tax policies affect economic conditions, job availabilities, and business opportunities, indirectly influencing your job prospects. So I don't think it is yet over.
They tell us they will reduce the tax, they will reduce the price of bread, they will reduce the price of so many things. But every single time, the opposite happens. People are so angry, and this anger has been building up for a long time now. It's clear that there's no trust in the government again. There's too much pain that's been caused on the people, and people will keep protesting, including myself. I don't know how that will be helpful really, but it's all we can do at the moment. So I fear that there might be more killings of innocent people. So many lives might be lost when it's really unnecessary. All the government has to do is listen to its people before it's too late.
Graduates Ivy, Philip and Valen on what drove them to protest against their government. Well, President Ruto now says he will not approve the original finance bill and its tax rises, and he's promised to engage with Kenya's youth, the kind of people we've been hearing from on this programme. He says he will introduce a new programme of public austerity, including a cut to spending in his own office. And in recent days, he's also ordered a review of an intended pay rise for members of Parliament. The protests, though, have continued. I'm James Reynolds. You're listening to BBC OS Conversations from the BBC World Service. Our next conversation is from the beginning of the protests. Let me introduce you to 26-year-old blogger Asha and to Nyawanga, who's a student. She's 20. Just to explain, they spoke to me whilst I was in the BBC's main newsroom here in London, and that's the reason for all the noise you'll hear behind me.
I took to the streets because I think I'm speaking on behalf of many young Kenyans when I realized we woke up and we came to a conclusion that tomorrow is ours. It doesn't belong to anyone else but us, and nobody's going to defend it the way we can.
And Asha, how has this subject caused you to protest?
As we all know, 70% of Kenyan population is mainly consisted of youth. We're not always asked about any bill that's being passed. There's no representation in parliament.
But isn't the point of representative democracy that members of parliament represent everyone? They don't have to be the same age.
They don't have to be the same age, but every bill that is being proposed is not being lenient or considerate of us. Regardless of us holding the majority of being a lot in population, we are not being considered. Yes, they'll say, oh, we're talking about youth, we're going to provide employment, but there's no employment. The healthcare services are terrible. You can't be a youth in Kenya and you have a great job and you're doing so well for yourselves because they're taking everything from you. And when you decide to protest, there's tear gas. Someone was just shot today for doing nothing but protesting.
Nyawanga, can you tell me about your friends, your generation of people? Do they have jobs?
I am a university student, but I'm also employed, but I am an exception and not the norm. The average Gen Z and my average age mate is unemployed. My average age mate actually is not even pursuing a tertiary education. Gen Z are tired, Gen Z know their rights, and Gen Z are an extremely intellectual and assertive generation of people who, because of constant mismanagement of funds, constant graft, constant corruption, constant lack of public participation, they have been not accorded the opportunities that have been promised to us in years.
I have been unemployed for about 2 years. I had to create a job opportunity for myself. On top of that, when you even ask for a job in the government,